So again, good morning. So we'll start with as usual, with the motivations. And before that, we'll try to quiet our mind by watching the breath mindfully for a few moments. And we can try to generate good intention by contemplating. Even though life seems long, it can be very short. Never know when is our last day. As we see around, we see our own friends, families, and others who have passed away suddenly. And that could also happen to us, that we can be gone suddenly, unexpectedly. And therefore, when we live this life, that we should live with more sense of having a meaning and satisfaction with our own life for what we have done while we're alive. And something that can give us joy, happiness, less regret is if we have managed to be able to practice the Dharma. Therefore, in order to make our life meaningful, whatever little time we might have. One must engage in the practice of the Dharma. Not only Dharma, the Mahayana Dharma, the Bodhisattva path, practices. And that is to be help and benefit to others as much as ourselves through body, speech, and mind. And even we can't be much benefit immediately, at least we try to not to intentionally hurt and harm, create more suffering and pain. Therefore, I'm going to try all my best as whatever time we have left to live in that way, to be benefit, if not at least not create more problems, suffering to others. Also, in order to be greatest help, benefit to all sentient beings, I must become more enlightened, more compassionate, more wise, with more wisdom. Therefore, I must achieve a fully awakened state as quickly as possible. In order to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering, cause of suffering. And in order to guide them to ultimate happiness of fully enlightenment. And in order to achieve that fully enlightened state and to be more compassionate, to develop more wisdom and other inner positive qualities, I must engage in a practice through reflection, contemplations, meditations. In order to be able to practice correctly, more profoundly, I need to study or be reminded of the practice. Therefore, I'm going to listen to the talk, engage into reflection, contemplation, and discussions. And whatever any helpful suggestions that we might find from those discussions that I'm going to apply in my everyday life as much as possible. Okay, so then we should revisit and put the prayer. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye chodang soge sonam la, chanchu padu dane gyasa, dagi choche gibe sonam, dola tenche sangye doba. Sangye chodang soge sonam la, chanchu padu dane, dagi choche gibe sonam, dola tenche sangye doba. So again, good morning, everyone, and welcome today mornings. And I think today's topic, I don't know for most of you whether it's interesting, because today's topic was, I think there were some students who were interested in taking refuge. So before they take refuge, maybe it would thought that it would be nice to have some discussions on that. So that was, but I think I can see most of you, have been Dharma student for long. So I don't think there might be any new information, but it could be just a reminder. Okay. So first of all, why we take refuge. And secondly, what it means taking refuge. And then, how do we take refuge? What does that mean? How do we do that? So I think maybe, and then maybe, some of the advice, commitments of having taken refuge. So I think maybe more or less I'm going to discuss on those points. First of all, why do we take refuge? Because it in one way it feels like that we are doing something special, something new, something special, something that we have not done before. Maybe in a way, from one point of view, it is yes. From one point of view, it is not. In our everyday life, we take refuge all the time. Whenever we have any problems in our life, and whenever we need some help to reduce the problems, to solve the problem, we take a refuge for different objects, So refuge is not something new. We already do it in our life in so many different ways, Some people, when they have problems and they don't know how to deal with that, when they don't know how to face the problem and they don't have maybe the tools to deal with those problems, then they take refuge in a substance. Some in alcohol, some take in drugs, some take in food. That is what we do to kind of, and sometimes we take refuge, when you have a problem, you try to escape, you escape from the place. You just might go in the woods, in the beach, take a vacations. Those are the things that we take refuge in. Some people find refuge in nature. So when they have some difficulties, they go in the natures because they find that kind of help them to deal with that, whatever difficulties that they might be going through. So those are things. And of course, when we are not physically healthy, then we take refuge to the doctors, those who are expert in that, So whatever problem we have, to solve the problem or to help with that problem, to deal with that, to help with that problem, we take refuge in different things, different objects, different things, So the idea of taking refuge is totally not new in a way. we might be thinking, oh, I'm kind of, when I take refuge, seems like that, is something happening new, but actually we do, so, but by taking refuge in all those different objects that we take, different substance, different object, different things that we take in our life, it doesn't really help to solve the problem. In some cases, even it helps for temporary, but again, the problem arises again. It's only temporary. A lot of time, it doesn't solve the problem. By taking refuge in, it is just like you kind of forget about the problem your problem, you forget that problem for a moment. But once again, it will come, and again, you have to deal with that, So it's not the permanent solutions. First of all, it doesn't necessarily even help in many of those. And in some cases, it does help a little bit, but then again, it's only temporary, and even it solves one particular problem, another problem arises. Never ending, And so the purpose of taking refuge here is to take refuge to a certain objects, particular objects, so that we can solve all the problem permanently. Not temporary, but to end all the problem, all the sufferings permanently. So that is purpose, because basically nobody wants suffering, but we continue to experience suffering. And how can we end the sufferings? By relying on what objects can we end the sufferings, And so in order to end the suffering, permanently, then we take refuge or go to refuge, so that is the purpose of, so here, when we go to refuge, we go to refuge not to solve the problem temporarily, but actually taking refuge to go to the very root of all the sufferings. The very root of all the sufferings, And by going to the very root of suffering, by overcoming the very root of sufferings, then we can overcome all the suffering permanently, And so that is so therefore, for that, the object of the in one of the materials writing, I think it could be ornament of the sutra, even though I can remember where, the Buddha Dhamma Sangha is the refuge for those who wish for liberations. So so here he describes the object of the refuge. The refuge here, the object of the refuge is Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Why we take refuge to them? We take refuge to them in order to liberate ourselves and other sentient beings from the samsara and the cause of the samsara. So we don't really, take a refuge to solve my problem of hunger, to solve the problem of my thirsty, to solve the problem of my relationship problems, to solve the problems of my health issues. Those, of course, come by products, naturally, all of those. But the purpose of taking refuge, when you go for refuge, when you take refuge here, is in order to free or liberate oneself from the suffering or the cause of the suffering, all the afflictive emotion and the delusions, So either for oneself or for one in all others, Of course, when we take Mahayana refuge, then of course, we take not only for individual liberation, but for the freedom or liberation of all sentient beings. So I think I believe that is very important to be aware and remember that. The purpose of taking refuge to Buddha Dharma Sangha is to liberate oneself and others from the samsara and the cause of the samsara. That should be the main purpose. That is the why we take refuge. Because sometimes we forget that, and then, we go for refuge for small things. I'm having this problem, so then I go to refuge to the Buddha Dharma Sangha. Then we lose the very essence of going to refuge. That is why in Maitreya he says, Buddha Dharma Sangha is the object of refuge for those who wish liberations. When you forget that, then, we pray, we go refuge, or I'm having some problem here, please solve the problems. And then how does that then? It is almost like, not much different from others spiritual path as well, where you pray to the Creator God. And just by praying, going refuge, they are going to solve your problems. It's not exactly same in the Buddhist concept. That kind of concept is being refuted by the Buddha himself, and so therefore, sometimes we treat almost, even though we say, we don't believe that, but the way we do is very similar. Do you get it? We say, I don't believe any creator, whether you say God or creator, some kind of agency there who can, by praying and going refuge, that they can solve all my problems, whatever problem I'm having. I don't believe that, but sometimes actually what we do in our everyday life is like that. When I'm sick, then I remember and I go refuge and pray. If I'm not sick, probably maybe I don't remember medicine Buddha, Then when I have obstacles, then again, I remember, maybe, Tara, or maybe, whoever, Guru Rinpoche, wherever, you remember that again, we started praying and we started taking refuge. And then again, the obstacle is gone, then again, we don't remember them. So the way we do is very similar. And then, we pray, we take refuge, and when things started to improve, we feel, he has answered our questions, our prayer. When things doesn't improve, then we think, oh, our answer has been not, our question has been not answered. We started to have some kind of doubt about the deity, the Buddha, doubt about the whole practice of refuge and all of those things. You see, that makes you kind of, our mind kind of shaky and shaky in our practice, shaky in all of that, because we went refuge wrongly. The purpose of going refuge to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha is not to, it is to help us in our spiritual path, on our path, to free, liberate from the afflictive emotions, the delusions, and the obscurations. We go refuge to get a help and support so that we can cultivate all these positive qualities like they have developed, so that we can be on the path that we can achieve liberations, and we can help others to achieve liberations. So I think that is, and of course, when you actually really go to refuge to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha from your heart, to be liberated from the delusions, freedom from the delusions, and then we work with our mind to do that. And then by doing that, you create a lot of virtues, a lot of merit. And then you can dedicate that for whatever purpose. You can dedicate that for people who are sick, them to get, them to be cured of that, who have obstacles, to clear of their obstacles. In that way, then we can kind of, we create the virtues, we create the merit, and then we share and we dedicate for others. That is how mostly the prayers dedication works. It's not like the, sometimes we can have a different understanding of that, yeah, because sometimes the way we do is not so much different from others, sometimes not so much different from others, even though we say we are different and we don't believe this and that, but anyway, so that is the refuge. So then the reason to go, the purpose or the reason to take refuge or go for refuge is in order to, free ourselves from the cause of all the suffering and samsara, the delusions, the afflictive emotions. Then we know why we need to go, or object of the refuge should be Buddha Dhamma Sangha, no other objects. Because in order to ask for someone who can help us, someone who can inspire us, someone who can show us the path, inspire us, give us courage to be able to work with our mind and overcome those delusions, then it has to be someone who has freed themselves from all the afflictive emotions. Someone who has, is free from all this obscuration. It has to be because someone to show you how to do with their own direct experience, then it has to be someone. So the object has to be fully enlightened, the Buddha. Someone who has overcome all the obscurations of defilement, the obscurations of knowledge. Someone who has, so from one point of view, someone who has overcome the obscurations, the defilement themselves, to be able to guide us, to show us the path to inspire us with their direct experience. So that is where and also, someone who have unconditional love and compassion, and that is, again, the Buddha, regardless of whether you make offering to him or not, whether you praise or not, whether you pray or not, whether you criticize or praise, regardless of that, someone who can have unconditional love, compassion. And that is what the Buddha fully enlightened one is. As is described in some of the teachings, one side, someone is trying to cut the Buddha's, body, hands. From another side, someone is trying to anoint, ascend, massaging, making offering, praising. The way he treats them is equal, even more compassion to someone who is trying to hurt him and harm him. No difference, one side criticizing him, another side praising him. Equally compassion, if not more compassion to the one who criticizes. So then when you, otherwise, if you praise, they help. If you don't praise, you don't help. If you pray, it helps. If you don't pray, it doesn't help. Then there's no difference, like we human beings, deluded human beings. That is what we do. Someone nice to you, you are nice to them. Someone's mean to you and you become mean to them. That is how we ordinary unenlightened beings act and behave. And the object to whom we are trying to go is like that, then not much different from ourselves. We do that ourselves. So therefore it has to be someone who has that kind of unconditional love, compassions, equally to everyone, And that is the only fully enlightened one, fully enlightened one, and again, even in historically, even when you read the story of Buddha himself, there are so many instances, how the way he treats. For example, one of his, cousin, Devadatta, who will always trying to compete because of his jealousy with the Buddha, throughout his life, even before, even from quite a young age, even in the palace, in the royal palace, he was very jealous, trying to compete with the Buddha. And out of that jealousy and competitiveness, then he's always trying to hurt and harm Buddhas in different, directly, indirectly. And same, even after both of them left the palace and have a different, and so many times, under the scheme of the Devadatta, they try to take the life of Buddha Shakyamuni, sometimes sending a wild elephant while he was coming, sometimes rolling a big rocks from the top, like that, many things that. Despite that, Buddha has no hard feeling for him, never treated her with hard feeling, never said bad things, always treated him with compassion. At the end, when Devadatta got sick, dying, it was the Buddha who took care of him. So that is even in that, from ordinary perspective, from an ordinary perspective, that is something observed and seen by everyone around there. You know, so that is the qualities that clearly shows the quality of fully enlightened, of that unconditional love, compassion, unpartial, unpartial or impartial compassion, you know, to everyone equally. And so, and even you have such a compassion, and you know, if you don't have the skillful means to help and guide, then again, that will be another things. You know, sometimes you have the best wishes or best thoughts, like parents' unconditional love for their child. They want to best for their child, but sometimes it doesn't turn out it is the best, the decision they take, advice they give. It's not due to the lack of unconditional love, but it is due to lack of, you know, not having the wisdom, not having the skillful means, you know. And so then again, if we don't have, then even we want to help others, how much we can help others will be very limited, you know. And so it needs to be someone who has limitless skillful means. And that is what the enlightened beings are able to do, you know, the Buddhas, the enlightened beings, you know. And that is exactly, even again, of course, you know, if we study the Mahayana's sutras and teachings, you know, so many different qualities, you know, even with one's speech, you know, to be able to present whatever they need to hear among different disciples. Even with one teachings, everyone's here differently according to their needs. You know. So among the disciples, there can be many different levels of realizations and their state of path, but everyone can hear exactly to their level what they need. Such just from the speech, the incredible skillful means qualities of that. And that is same in terms of his manifestations, able to manifest simultaneously whatever is needed in that individual situation to that individual sentient beings to be benefit and help, all of that. But even we don't talk from all this, you know, from what do we see in descriptions of the Buddha's qualities in the Mahayana, even in a very ordinary, even those ordinary people who were, you know, at the time of the Buddhas, you know, you can see how skillful he was. Unlike like us, you know, we think, oh, I know, you know, or I know the truth. This is the truth. So, you know, we just kind of feel like we need to share with everyone, you know. Sometimes even it is a truth, it can be a bitter truth for a lot of people. Instead of being helpful, it can be very unhelpful. You know, sometimes it can make them very discouraged by the truth. Sometimes it can make their, instead of uplifting, they are already down, and then it make you even more down and lead them to depression. Or it can lead to many different emotions, negative emotions, many different feelings. And that is where, you know, when Buddha was asked same questions, sometimes he answered differently according to what was the need of that individual in that point. That is what skillful means. When he was asked whether there is self or not, because Buddha taught most of teaching on selflessness, emptiness, selflessness. But then there are certain times when certain disciples come with a different misunderstanding and different state of understanding and that. And when they ask whether there's self or not, in certain time, then he explained as though there is a self. In certain time, of course, he explained about selflessness. In certain time with certain individual, he didn't say neither. He didn't say there is self, neither he said there is no self. And those who are, if he says there is self, that person is falling into one of the extreme, because then he thinks that there is going to be a permanent self or truly existing self. If he said there is no self, then that person is going to fall in the nihilism. So that person is that kind of mind. His mind is in that set where by saying either of them, it could fall in one of the two extremes. In the best was not to say. So there are some teachings we call Lungmaten, where Buddha kept neutral, They didn't say yes, no, And so the way he responds to different individuals in that shows of the skillful means, what is most beneficial, helpful for that individual in that moment, and so I think, so anyway, so that is so we need that's in order to help others, we need a skillful means that, and so is the fully enlightened one who has all these skillful means. So that is the way Buddha become the fully, Buddha is the refuge to liberate ourselves and others from the sense, all the delusion and samsara, So the Buddha and the Dharma, the Dharma is and Buddha is able to do all of this, in terms of his skillful means, in terms of all of that because of his enlightened mind. Because of his enlightened mind. His enlightened, exalted wisdom. And that is the Dharma, that is the Dharma, that the ultimate Dharma is that, the wisdom, the enlightened wisdom of the Buddha, And of course, relatively, is all the teachings, that explain how to cultivate, how to develop such a wisdom, such an enlightened mind, And the Sangha, is those who have actualized wisdom, realizing the ultimate truth directly. That is the Arya Sangha. That is the real actual Sangha, Whoever that is, or there is, regardless of who that person or any sentient beings who have cultivated, anyone who has cultivated the wisdom within their mind stream, the wisdom relies on the ultimate truth. That is the Sangha, okay? That is the Sangha, the Arya Sangha. And then, of course, conventionally, a gathering of, there are two different kind of commentaries. In some, it says, when there is both bhikshu and bhikshunis, as well as novice, ketsul, novice, male and female, then that is 4 of them together become Sangha. Some others is the bhikshu and bhikshuni plus upasaka, those who have taken lay vows, both male and female together, so then it becomes Sangha, So of course, that is more kind of precise. Normally, of course, we use more kind of loosely, in Sangha. But normally that is when you are more precise. So that is the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. The object of going to the refuge is Buddha Dhamma Sangha. The cause to go to the reason or the cause to take refuge is, in order to liberate, in order to free from the samsara and the cause of samsara, the delusions. That is the cause. And for a Mahayana refuge, on top of that, then in order to liberate all other sentient beings as well from the suffering, from the samsara and cause of samsara. So with that compassion, not only wanting to liberate oneself, but to liberate all sentient beings, all other sentient beings as from samsara and cause of samsara. And then having the trust and faith in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha to be able to help us to do that. Then the trust, the faith, confidence that the Buddha Dhamma Sangha has the ability to help us to free ourselves from all those samsara and the cause of samsara. So then how do we go? So that is the object of refuge, and the cause to take the cause or the reason to go refuge. So how do we go in refuge? In many of the writings, they describe of going refuge two types. One we call causal refuge and resultant refuge, and they're slightly different in that way. In resultant refuge, is we all have this potential. We all have a Buddha nature. All sentient beings have Buddha nature. The potential to become enlightened. The potential to become fully enlightened. And so since we have that, then, since we have that potential, then even though we haven't cultivated now let's say the exalted, enlightened, exalted wisdom within ourselves at this point, but we have the potential to develop that wisdom. The Dharma, the actual Dharma, the exalted wisdom relies on the ultimate truth. Even though we might not have cultivated that wisdom at this point, the wisdom relies on ultimate truth directly, but we have the potential to have the potential. So we take that potential as a result now, in a form of result, and we go refuge to our own wisdom, that exalted wisdom now. And same way, when we cultivate that wisdom within ourselves, then we become Arya Sangha. So again, even though we are not really, at least me, okay? Even though we might not be really Arya Sangha at this point, but we have the potential to be. So taking that as a result, and we go in refuge to that Arya Sangha, where we have that potential. And having cultivated that wisdom within ourselves and having becoming the potential to become an Arya Sangha, and as we walk on the path, continue to walk on the path, with that wisdom, together with the Bodhicitta mind, and eventually through the path and 10 bhumi, we can achieve fully enlightenment. We have the potential to achieve enlightenment. Even though we are not fully enlightened at the moment, so So then, since we have that potential, we take refuge to our own Buddha that is going to be in the future. So that is what the resultant refuge means, taking the refuge to your own potentials of cultivating that Dharma within yourself, the potentials of being Arya Sangha and the potential of becoming fully enlightened. So going to those, our own that. In order to reach that, in order to cultivate that, so in order to go refuge to our own Dharma, we have to develop our Dharma within ourselves. But that requires practice. Once we have cultivated that wisdom, then of course we can rely on that wisdom. But at the moment, we don't have that wisdom, even though we have the potential. So we need to actualize that potential. And through practice. And for the practice, then we need all the support and help. And then from the causal refuge, so then the Buddha, like such as Buddha Shakyamuni or other Buddhas who are separate from us, then we take refuge to them. By taking refuge to them, they become the cause for us to actualize the Dharma. They are able to inspire us. They are able to encourage us. They are able to show path. They are able to help us, bless us to cultivate the wisdom within ourselves. In the same way, the Arya Sanghas, those who have already on the path and those who have already actualized, even though they might not be fully enlightened at the moment, but they have, who are on the path, who have already actualized that wisdom within themselves, again, they can also inspire us. They can also help us. They can also, be a role model for us, inspirations to cultivate the wisdom like themselves and to become Arya Sangha ourselves. Through that, again, they help us. They become the cause for us to make a progress on our path. And the same things, the Dharma of the Buddhas, the wisdom, exalted wisdom of the Buddhas, exalted wisdom, those Arya Sangha, again, can help us because of their wisdom. Through that, then we are able to receive all these teachings. We are able to get all these inspirations and all this support. And through that, then we are able to make progress on our path to cultivate the wisdom within ourselves. So, there's, so that is how we go. How we go refuge to the Buddha Sangha. So it is explained, the way we go to refuge to the Buddha Sangha is like, seeing the Buddhas like the doctor, seeing the Dharma like the medicine, the treatment. And by seeing the Sangha as the nurse or assistants that help us to take the right treatment at the right time and all other help, like that. So by seeing, so when we are sick, of course, we seek help to recover from our sickness. We seek help, go to refuge. And first is to see the doctor who is expert in that, who can diagnose what exactly problem we are having and what exactly treatments that can help us, who can prescribe the exact right treatment. That is like the Buddha. And then once the doctor prescribes whatever treatment it is, then you have to take the treatment to recover from that. And so that means we have to actualize the Dharma within ourselves to protect, just like curing, to protect ourselves from all the suffering and samsara and all the delusions. So if you don't take the treatment, no matter how great the doctor is, even though the doctor has been able to diagnose exactly what your problem was, and the doctor has exact solution to that problem, the treatment to cure. But if you don't take the treatment, then the doctor cannot do much to help you being cured. And that is same similarly like that. Buddha diagnosed what our problem is, the problem of the delusion problems, sickness, delusion, sickness. And he's prescribed exactly what to do, the treatment, how to meditate, how to practice exactly. If we don't do the practice, then, even the Buddha can't do so much. So much. That is where, as Buddha, in one of the sutras, Buddha said, I can show you the path to liberations, but whether you achieve liberation or not, it depends on you yourself. Buddha didn't say, you pray for me and you don't have to practice, and I will help you to achieve liberations. He didn't say that. We wish maybe he could say that. And we wish that he had that power to do that. But yeah, Buddha didn't say that. He said, I can show you the path. And you have to do yourself. And so therefore, just as we need to take the treatment ourselves, we need to cultivate the Dharma, practice the Dharma ourselves. And just as when you're trying to take the treatments, you need some assistance, help, whether it's a nurse or other form of assistance, And same way, Sanghas members can help us when we are feeling kind of discouraged. They can kind of give us some kind of encouragements. When we are confused, maybe they might be able to help us to clear some of the things, inspiring, sharings, giving support, moral support, spiritual support, whatever, different. Sometimes being when we become lazy, they inspire us, that is what Sangha really helps, like when you do retreat together, if you are by yourself, you can, maybe I want to take off one sessions today. I don't feel so, inspired or feel a little lazy. Sometimes we might just take off. But when you have all other Sangha members doing, and you get encouragement, like in the monastery, when we do the fasting, Nyungne fasting, practice, sometimes those young monks encourage you, like, because you are not kind of eating and drinking second day, you are not even drinking, during those time, and doing a lot of frustration, you feel like, maybe you don't have so much energy, so you try to do less prostrations, especially the second day, But when you see all the young monks, oh, they are very going, then you think, oh, even those young ones are doing that, I must do more, So they inspire you. Or sometimes much more older, like when we were doing Lama Lundup, of course he was already in 70s at those time, and again, he was doing so much prostration, and again, you think, oh, he's much more older than us, and he has that much energy, and he can do it. Why can't you do it? So it gives you some kind of energy or inspirations by seeing the other Sangha members doing that. So that is what in our practice, Sangha can help in so many different ways to help us be on the path, continue to be on the path. And whenever we have some difficulties, where we can discuss, talk, share, so it's like the so that is how, when we take refuge, that is how we go, the actual refuge is the Dharma. And then it's the Buddha who show us how to cultivate that actual Dharma within ourselves. And the Sangha is someone who can support us to cultivate that Dharma, the actual refuge within ourselves. Then I think, it kind of, when we understand that, then it really fits the whole, the actual the Buddha's teaching or Buddhism because what protect us, what save us, what protect us from the suffering, from the samsara, is our own Dharma in our own practice. So it all comes back to us. Instead of thinking, I just pray and go refuge to the Buddha, pray to him, then he will take care of me. Do you get it? That is all I need to do. I pray to him, praise to him, make offering to him, recite his mantras, all do, then I don't have to do much. He will save me. He will save me. He will protect me from all my suffering, all my problem, from the samsara. If we believe that, then it goes very much against the basic Buddha's teachings. So that is where, of course, there is no doubt, the Buddha has much more, of course, Buddha has, as we mentioned, before, being enlightened, and he has the power to be greatest benefit to each and every sentient beings. But it's not one side, it has to be two-sided. In Tibetan, in some of the scripture, they explain about, you need the hook and what you call, like, when you need to put something hook, you have to create this, what you call,
fly or bait or fly.
What was that?
Eye. The hook and eye.
Okay, eye. Thank you. Hook and eye. Yeah, thank you. So there is the hook, but you have to create the eye to be able to hook it back. And to be able to hook it back, to create the eye, you have to do the practice. So it's combinations of that how Buddha can help, in that. another example they create, and you see in some of the scriptures, is whether it's the rain, if it's raining, through that rain, it can give rise to all the plants, okay? All the plants. It has that power or the potentials to give rise to all the plants. But to get the rain, you have to put your plant in the right place. You have to create that conditions where you can get the rain. Same thing, we have to create the conditions through our practice. It will be same with the sun. The sun has the power, potential to, again, give rise to many of the plants and everything. But again, to get the sun, you have to put the plant in the right place where it gets it. And so similarly, again, we have to create the condition ourselves through our practice to be able to receive the blessings. The blessings are always there. Just like the rain, just like the sun. And when create the right conditions, and then it clicks, and then there is the blessings, Of course, blessing doesn't mean, again, it started to rain some kind of nectars, Sometimes we might think that because when we do visualization, we do that kind of visualization. So maybe we might think even in reality, when there is a blessing, maybe there must be something coming up there, When we do practice, sometimes suddenly you have strong inspirations, That is blessing. Sometimes then in your practice, you started to have strong inspirations. In the practice, you started to have a strong feeling or whatever that is, whether it's loving kindness, compassion, whether it's about emptiness, impermanent, whether it's a precious human rebirth, whether it's a guru devotion, whether it's a refuge, whatever, And so those are kind of the sign of the blessings, when we started to have some shift in our mind, when you started to have something positive shift in our mind, when we started to have some kind of positive changes in our mind, when there is a small shift in our practice before we struggles, and then suddenly it started to become more smooth and more shift, that is because of the blessings, Your practice and the blessing coming together, then that is where it started to have that result, Yeah. So of course, I don't know. We don't need to go so details, about trying to speak about all the qualities of Buddha's physical speech and mind, and then the dharmas, all the qualities of the dharma, all the different qualities, the 8 qualities of dharma, 8 qualities of the sanghas, all of that. I think maybe people can study more if they are interested to. But I think today we will not go in a detail of that. So the refuge is the trust, the faith, the confidence in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha to help, to support, to inspire us to free ourselves from and others from the samsara and delusions. And in order to liberate and free oneself and others from the suffering, from the samsara and cause of samsara, the delusions, in order to do that, then having the trust and confidence in them to be able to inspire, help, bless, and in order to help us to do that. Having that trust, that confidence, that faith is what really refuge is, you know, unshakable, you know, no matter, sometimes we struggle in our practice. Some days our practice is better. Some days our practice is not so great, you know. Sometimes we feel like we are making progress. Sometimes we feel like we are going backwards, you know. Oh, my practice used to be much more better. Now it seems like my practice has gone down. And all of these things is part of our practice, is part of learning, is part of training. And those things happens, those things arises, thoughts arises, starting to doubt, you know, and then not having a strong inspirations. And sometimes we have a very strong inspiration, and sometimes we are making some progress. We feel we are making progress, all of that. Regardless, whatever happened, our situations in our practice, up and downs, which is part of the training, part of the path, never losing the trust, confidence, the faith in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha to guide us, to support us, to help us on the path. Even when we are not in the best form in our practice, still they are always there to guide us, to bless us, to support us, to help us. Knowing that there is there, that is very important. To know that, you know, it's like, you know, child or someone who is not feeling well, but to know that there is their parents who love and care and who will take care of them. Having that kind of feeling of the security, feeling of that being under care, feeling of that there is someone I can rely on. Do you get it? Feeling of that there is something that when I'm having a difficulty that I can rely on, you know. That's important, to have that confidence and comfort in, you know, just like in ordinary that is important for the children when they are growing up, that they when things are not so, when they are having some challenges, difficulty, to know that there is someone they can trust, they can rely on, they can depend on. And same in our practice, same in our practice. No. Whether things are, our practice is going well or whether our practice are challenging, but always having that trust, confidence, faith that the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha are there to whom we can rely on all the time, to whom we can depend on all the time, to whom we can trust. So, if we have that kind of faith, you know, then, you know, even in difficult time, you will not, you know, give up the practice easily. You know, you will not give up the practice easily, and let that difficult time become obstacles to give up your practice, to give up your path. You know. Otherwise, you know, things are not so going well in our practice, some challenges, some difficulties, and then we don't have trust that there is someone we can rely on to come out of this difficult time, difficult practice path, then sometimes it can be, we might be very discouraged and we might kind of give up the practice, the path itself, you know. But when we know that there is, even it is difficult, but there is the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha always there, we can rely on, trust, and depend on. So then, you know, that gives you some hope, and keep you kind of more alive to be on the path, even when it's not so easy to be on the path. And so, so I think that is more or less a little bit about the refuge itself, you know. Okay, maybe there might be one question. What is the connection with the person who performed the refuge ceremony for you? Does it mean that his person become your teacher? Can you please talk about the connection you form with these persons? I don't know, nowadays, everything is, nowadays, even you have taken initiation, still you don't regard someone as a teacher's gurus, where the time has become such that people take initiation, empowerment, and still that, and then of course, Mahayana teachings and so much teaching, or even oral transmissions, teachings, all Lung, all of that, and and then of course other teachings and refuge, as well as other vows as well. More strict, or how can we call more traditional, the way is that definitely that person become one of the teachers. Of course, you can have many teachers and different level of teachers, the teachers who give you vows, the teacher who give you the teaching and instructions, advice on lumbering path, and then teachers who give you the and empowerment and so forth, and teachings on tantric and so that, there is a different level of the teachers, and so definitely more, if you rely on mostly on earlier teachings, then definitely it creates some kind of connection as a teachers on that very basic level, as a someone who gave the refuge or the lay vows. Yeah. So yeah, I think so. That is mostly, that is yeah. So I think, yeah, I think that is kind of the answer to that questions. So of course, for those who are interested in taking refuge for the first time, we do a kind of formal this kind of refuge ceremony, and the refuge master or teachers, whatever you call, who guides and lead you through the ceremony, and to do that formally. But the main thing is, the main refuge is actually having that we just spoke about, that the trust, confidence, faith from your side to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. That is the main one, If you don't have that faith, trust, confidence in Buddha Dhamma Sangha, then even the teacher try to lead you through this ceremony, even we have that kind of formal, then it doesn't really, that is not a real refuge. The real refuge has to come from within yourself. And it is just a ceremony that can help you guide through that, the very beginning. And once you take refuge, then, it is, then you have entered, or become, some kind of, you have the label as a Buddhist, I don't know what that label means, just because you have that label, it doesn't mean you are a better person than before you have that label, it doesn't change anything, having that label or not label, who you are in that. But if you like to have more label, it is good to have one more label, so, now I can tick this one, I am a Buddhist. No. This has been on the long list. I haven't been able to take it. Now I can take it. Now this is done. So if it helped you to tick that something you wanted to tick, that is good. But anyway, so yeah. So any questions? Comments, questions?
You can either raise your hands or you can put something in the chat box. Or you can unmute.
Hi there, good morning again.
Good morning, good morning.
I have a question. So
yeah.
I know we're supposed to get out of the samsara, but where did it, is there an answer to where it all started? Like who created the samsara and all of that?
Yeah, from Buddhist point of view, there's no one who created the samsara. Individually, I create my own samsara by myself. You create your own samsara. So we create our own samsara. So I create my own samsara, and my mind created my own samsara. My ignorance created my own samsara. And out of my ignorance, out of my delusions, then it created my own samsara. So individually, we all create our own state of beings. So the state of being out now is in a samsara. So that is created by ourselves, by our own mind, by our own delusion, our own ignorance. So that is, from Buddhist point of view, that is, I am the creator of my own samsara. I am the creator of my own nirvana. And if you go, who is that I who created your own samsara? Then mostly it is your own mind, basically, who create your own problem in samsara. And it is your own mind who create your own nirvana and your peace. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So there's no big creator who created everything.
No. There's no creator Buddha. There's no creator other energies or agency that create all these samsara, individuals' problems, individual samsaras. We all are responsible for our own experience, good or bad. Yeah, so that is the very basic kind of fundamental understanding or teaching of the Buddhism, that there is no one outside, whether we call it Buddha, whether we call it God, whether we call it whatever we call it, there's no one outside who has created our problem or our happiness. We ourselves and our mind is the source of all our problem and all our happiness, mainly. So suffering and nirvana, yeah.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
We have another hand raised.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Geshela, and thank you, everyone. So Geshela, this is my first time attend the Zoom meeting, and I take Refuge 2 weeks ago with another Geshela, but then at the time, with the Zoom, I didn't quite understand anything or hear anything. So it's so wonderful to hear your explanation today, what it means to take the refuge. So my question is, Geshela, I'm sorry, am I allowed to take refuge again today at 1:30 with you, or even just watch the people? Yes, thank you, Geshela.
Yes, I think the refuge can be renewed. Those who have already taken before, you can renew it. And so definitely you can, if someone is interested, they can join and they can take it. So you can renew, take it, or if you just observe, that is also possible. There is no what you call, no appropriation from someone participating, even they don't want to take it. Someone can come and just kind of join it, just see it, observe it, or those who have taken before, if they want to renew, they can also renew it, and by following the ceremony together. Yeah.
Thank you, Krishna.
Yeah. Okay. Any others before we? Yes, please.
Sorry to be so.
Yes, yes.
I know you studied Buddhism for a long time. Is there anything in your mind that you would change preferably? Like, is there anything you would like to make better or to like revise?
Can you repeat again?
Is there anything in your teachings that you would revise in general for all people, or make better, or just say, this is not what this means?
I still didn't get exactly what.
For example, if you don't agree with this in Buddhism, do you think you could make this better, or do you think everything is perfect so far? Like the teaching?
Nothing is perfect at the moment. I think unless one becomes enlightened, fully enlightened, at least my understanding is that unless someone is fully enlightened, there's no perfections. We all try our best to improve, do better. Still, we can improve, get better, but that doesn't necessarily mean perfections. And once you become fully enlightened, then that is where the perfection really comes. Then everything is perfect, but until then, we all can only try to learn, and we all can try to improve and make it better, but there's no perfections. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Most welcome. And again, I think I did touch on that, I think, as today as well. And also today, I think, and His Holiness Dalai Lama, as always says, you don't have to agree everything. Even I myself have a lot of problems from many teachings as well, or certain teaching, certain practice, to take it literally, even I have a problem with that. So I don't take everything as literally. Some of things, I have a disagreement with certain things if you take it literally. And that is also the Buddha himself said, don't take it because I said it. Analyze, investigate. And if you find it's suitable, beneficial, helpful, it has reasons, take it. If you feel it doesn't have a reason, good reason, if you feel it is not suitable, just leave it aside. And that is also His Holiness message as well. There are certain things that we can learn from Buddhism that you can be able to apply, might help you in your life. And there are certain things maybe you might not feel helpful or suitable for oneself, and we just leave those things aside, and we don't have to kind of, we just leave it on the side, and whatever we feel beneficial, helpful, suitable for us, then we try to use those tools, those practice, those meditations, and whatever we don't feel suitable or not beneficial, meaningful for us, then we just kind of keep it on the side.
Okay, thank you very much. I think my girlfriend has a question. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Can I ask a question that's not about taking refuge?
Yes.
I'm currently practicing Buddhism, and I realized that the attachment to romantic relationship is one of the biggest like trouble for me to realize emptiness. So I'm wondering if you have any suggestions for me that I can take and integrate to my daily practice to tackle this problem.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I wish I had an answer to that. I wish I had the answer so that you know, most of our problem in our humanity is that problem, attachment in a relationship. You know, it could be romantic, or sometimes it is even the attachment relation between the children and parent as well. You know, that attachment can also lead to a problem between their relationship. So of course, you know, attachment is one of the biggest problem for sentient beings. You know, so because it is so much part of our life, it's not easy to overcome it immediately. You know, and of course there are many different meditation practice, but again, you know, it depends on which particular meditations is effective to you. You know, some meditation that might be effective to someone might not be effective to you. You know, there are some meditations like, you know, for example, if we're attached to certain attractions, physical attractions, you know, for example, there are certain meditations that is described, you know, about different meditations that within the part of the mindfulness meditations on the physical aggregates. So within that mindfulness meditation on physical aggregates, there are many different meditations, you know, especially in relation to being attached to a physical appearance or attraction to the physical appearance in relation to that, you know. One of the meditations is, you know, if I'm attracted to a certain physical appearance, and, you know, then going beyond that outlook, you know, what is behind that skin, you know, and then it's kind of behind that skin, there is a flash under that, what is there? So kind of scanning that way, you know, one by one, and looking from all inside, scanning that. Of course, just doing one time is not going to go our attachment, you know, but if we keep on doing that over the time, then maybe, you know, every time you see that, then you have appearance of that image, not just the outside, but also all inside. And when you see everything inside, then we might be less attached to the appearance, the physical appearance itself. So that is, you know, I'm sure even the doctors who do surgery, you know, when they're opening all of that, I'm sure at that moment, they don't get, attached to the physical appearance in that moment. But I think later, maybe when they are out of their surgery places, they forget that. And then when they don't remember, still they can be attached to that. So we try to meditate over the time. So then when you have that image, then you have that image of not just the package, but what is inside the package, everything, you know. And so then there will be less kind of attachment to the attractions of the physical attractions. And then there are some other meditation within that, you know, visualizing as a skeleton and imagining, you know, the body after the death, first week, second week, third weeks. There are so many different meditations. And again, I don't know which is more effective or not. And you have to try and see what practice meditation is more effective. And then whatever you find more effective, then you try to do that more regularly. that. First, maybe you might want to try few different meditation techniques that there might be, and so that is one of them, you know, and meditation on impermanent might be helpful, you know, how every relationship could change any moment, you know, because the other person is impermanent, we are impermanent, and their feeling could change any moment. My feeling could change any moment. Their perception can change any moment. My perception can change any moment. And when there is change of that, the relation could change, you know. And even that person doesn't want to change, they can't stop from changing their perception. They can't change, changing their emotions, feelings, moment by moment, because so many things influence our feelings, our emotions, our perceptions, moment by moment, from what we hear, from what we see, you know, even from the weather, from what we eat, everything's. And so with all of that, you know, everything could change any moment. Their mind could change, their perception would change, their physical appearance could change, everything could change. So knowing that it is absolutely everything changeable. So if I'm attracted to something because I'm attached to something, because I'm attracted to something, attached to something in that relationship, you know, it could be the physical appearance, it could be their nature, you know, it could be their mind, because we feel that person is very kind, compassionate, or that person seems very smart, or we have all the different perceptions about that person, and then on the basis of that perceptions, then we are attracted to that, whatever quality that attract us to be attached to that. So whatever object we are attracted to towards that lead us to strong attachments. You know, we can think everything could change any moment, anything can change any moment. So if something's going to change, why should I grasp so strongly, you know, tightly, you know, because it is not healthy and not realistic. And so through that kind of meditation, impermanent nature of that person's quality that you are attracted to, as well as ourself, can be another practice meditation that might be helpful, you know. And then of course there is the meditation on emptiness as well. And so there are many different meditations, and you might want to try some of them and see whether you connect with any of them, whether you feel any of those feel beneficial, helpful. And then, you know, if wherever you are, if there are some close by some other Buddhist centers, teachers, you could also, or whether it's the teachers, whether there is other Sangha members, you can always kind of talk, discuss, and get their kind of suggestions, opinions, and with that, maybe it might be able to help with the time. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. Okay, so then we will see at 1. And again, if anyone has more questions, you can always bring later as well. And so then again, we start with a short, close with short dedication to cultivate the bodhicitta mind within oneself and all sentient beings. Gyawadi nyutu da lama sangye dubyo ne dowa chi kyamade te sala kwe pararesh. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen and grow, that may which that has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. We'll see you at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ciao.